from another era ready to perform this afternoon at Amaroo Park Raceway. This is the Group N saloon car race. Appendix J's, rock and roll hardtops.
They're not actually cars from another era, Mike. I'm sorry, they're just cars from another suburb.
5 laps the distance. Let's take a look at the grid. Bruce Allen has pole with a 59.16 in the Cooper S. Greg Topfer at an EH Holden, 60.70. Lindsay Dive in a Cooper S is third on the grid. Fourth, Bob Asher in a Cooper S. Fifth is Rob Tweedy in another Cooper S. Mike Dyer's Holden starts out of 6. 7th is Brad Tilley in a Valiant.
Oh, all right.
Out of position number 8, Paul Arnott in a Lotus Cortina. From 9 is Lee Dredden in a Valiant. That's not a dreaded Valiant. And out of 10, car number 5, Richard Mingay in an EH Holden. There's Allen, the pole sitter, 59.16. He's got quite a good break over the field. We've got about 30 seconds before they light up the starting grid. And in an earlier race this morning, Allen was able to outdistance the field by about 4 or 5 car lengths. Topfer missed the start completely. So if we can get away quickly here and move across to the inside, he might have a chance.
Look at this, it looks like any shopping centre in 1966.
Red lights on. They turn to green and we're off and racing. Rock and roll hardtops, Greg Topfer and Allen get off very, very quickly indeed. The second row of Dive and Asher go at it on the inside. They're making a good run up the outside. It was Mike Dyer. There he goes. He made a good start. Might even drop into second. Or third.
No, he's got third. Oh, yeah, third spot.
This
muscled out a couple of minutes.
There's a Valiant handling like a Valiant should.
Indeed. The waltz of the ex-cabs, they call this.
Well, he's missed the kick, and about 6 minis have nobbled him on the inside, so he goes back a couple of spots.
The greengrocer's favourite is off the pace.
Allen will lead it down through the Coke sweeper and heading down to the left-hander. And there's the gap. First over second. Topfer in the EH. Oh, there goes the mini back. For a while, out the rough. Rally cross, Amaroo style. He only dropped 2 spots. He's got the Valiant in front of him. 5 laps the distance. A sprint.
Well, Greg Topfer not letting Bruce Allen get away from him quite as much in the early stages of this race. Good performance. And he seems to have a bit on those other minis. They're having trouble, by the way, getting around Mike Dyer, of course.
Watch at the top of the hill as we picked them up in Dunlop Loop. Topfer's EH Holden. The way it lurches through there, didn't that time. The Valiant's not doing too bad. Trying to find the inside line here, but...
remarkably well. It's doing remarkably well. It's not easy to get those torsion bars all tweaked up so that they'll go around a circuit like Amaroo Park. Oh, the Peugeot's parked. He was only in it for a bet anyway, I think.
49.
Ken Brigden.
Started last in the field and he's out. Oh, a scrap on here for third spot. Tell you what, Tilley in the Valiant has been pretty busy. He's had minis on the inside and the outside of him, car number 60. See how good the car performs under brakes.
Well, the mini's gone under him going into the corner.
And there the brakes.
He's hung up wide again. He's got plenty of chrome to play with anyway.
They don't lurch around too badly. I mean, I think they're pretty nicely tied down in reality. They sit, you know, given the vintage of the vehicle, they sit reasonably flat on what is a fairly tight circuit. I mean, the old Valiant's blowing a bit of smoke, but she's handling like a dream.
That's it. Breathing a little heavily over the top of Skyline. He's managed to pick up Dyer here on the inside. That's turned out very nicely.
Lotus Cortina is a retirement.
Yes, it's on the infield, out of harm's way.
Look at this. This evokes images of one's childhood, Michael, doesn't it? I mean, look at these fabulous old vehicles.
Yes, my brother owned a Valiant just like this.
Did he?
Yes.
Rumour has it he still does.
He does. It's car number 60, Tilley, and he's only back in 4th spot. It's not too far back. In fact, our race leader, Bruce Allen in the Mini, just holding probably a 2-car length gap over Greg Topfer. There it is. They come across the start-finishing line.
I noticed the director's holding this Valiant, Tilley's Valiant. He must have had one himself as a child, I think. The S-Series, of course, the infinitely more elegant of the 2 cars. The R-Series with the false spare tyre in the boot. Not an attractive vehicle, but the S-Series, a thing of beauty, a sculpture.
There's 34. Bruce Allen, race leader. Gets away from Topfer down through Dunlop Loop. Topfer has a little bit of a chance here to pull it back, but the EH does tend to lurch all over the racetrack.
They were great days, the days of Beachy and Muir and Jane in the old 3.8 Mark II Jaguar. I think a lot of people really respond to this kind of racing. It brings the old pundits back to the track.
20 years ago, our predecessors were sitting here waxing lyrical about the handling capabilities of these cars and the enormous power they had in their day.
The Cooper S was unbeatable, wasn't it? It sort of dominated Australian touring car racing for 4 years.
One lap to go, and this is as close as they've been. Could be quite a finish here between Allen and Topher. I wonder if Topher's got enough toe to get past.
Lindsay Dive is there, and Tilly at the tiller of the Valiant still heads up the hill.
I think as Australians, proud Australians, we should go for Topher. He's going for it after all. Australia's own, Australia's finest out there on display at Amaroo Park today.
Well, the car, not the best actually through Dunlop Loop. Not big kind. 79, Rob Tweedy starting to close up on Topher now. They're in their final lap down to Honda Corner. Now Topher has a chance to go for it here. He works to the outside. The brakes of the Mini are infinitely better as they all jab on the anchors here at Lake Corner. Can he switch back on the inside? Here he comes. Thinking about it, if the Mini gets away from him, they're coming up to the last corner.
An EH taking the inside line on the Cooper S seems unlikely at this juncture.
Oh! Checkered flag at the ready. It'll be Allen across the line for Topher. And Rob Tweedy picks up third spot. And Tilly in the Valiant will pick up fourth.
Leichhardt erupts into cheers and screams of bliss.
Well, a good race for those who like to turn the clock back. Bruce Allen turned it back better than most today. Let's recap them on the Castrol scoreboard. Bruce Allen in the Cooper S tastes victory. Greg Topher in the EH second. Tweedy's Cooper places third. Tilly fourth in the Valiant. And Mike Dyer's Holden places fifth.
Reintroduced 7 years ago after a track absence of almost a decade, production car racing is enjoying success the second time around. The slip-in and a slide and showroom stockers are now working hard to be a viable support act to the Bathurst-style touring car thunderers. Back in the 60s and early 70s, the annual Bathurst Classic built a reputation around street cars that went racing to the howl of tortured road rubber, series production cars. It was the era of the Minis and the Monaros and big V8 Falcons, and young movers named Brock and Bond and Moffat. Then in mid-1972, the supercar controversy erupted. Headlines screamed a message of lethal bullets on wheels, and the political opportunists quickly hauled the shutters down on series production. Good ideas don't go away, though, and in 1981, production car racing was reborn with a different cast. Mazdas and Nissans, and even a Volvo got into the revival show. And it kept on rolling along. More cars, more drivers, bigger races. For a budding tin-top competitor, the showroom stock class looks economically and artistically viable. US NASCAR racing requires a budget of a couple of million greenbacks a season, and to join the Brocks and Johnsons on the touring car trail could cost $750,000 plus. So there's always production cars. Close, exciting racing with the opportunity to make a name for yourself for a figure between $30,000 and $100,000 annually. Of course, some critics of the showroom stockers and their one-mate cousins keep telling us there's never enough action. Not enough biffo. Too predictable. And not fast enough. Hold it right there, bucko. Today's radial-tired races are actually quicker than the old V8 Monaro and GT Falcon Master Blasters that once blitzed Mount Panorama. What's in store then for our bicentennial race season? Is it the year of the Aussie Commodore? In 1987, Mitsubishi Starions held a mortgage on the major races. In a photo finish, Kevin Bartlett clinched the Stallion Stables 2WS series here at Amaroo, while Peter Fitzgerald triumphed in the one-race Yokohama National Championship. But new regulations have sent the Mitsubishi Brigade scampering. Only Brad Jones has persevered with a later model Starion using the now mandatory lead-free fuel. Aided by the rule changes, turbocharged Holden Commodores swamped the results in the title opener at Simmons. Others are set to challenge in 88. The fast but so far temperamental RX-7 Turbo, John Burke's Supra, Ford's little TX3 Turbo Grunter, and the Italian job, the Alfa Romeo 75. Unfortunately, production car racing brings with it an inherent problem: competitors who loosely interpret the rigid rules. Drivers caught fudging are directed by cam stewards to take a holiday from the sport.
That is a sweet tune, Sol.
That's my daughter's car.
Daughter's? She uses Castrol GTX?
No, boss.
No?
She uses GTX too.
You mean GTX as well?
No, boss. GTX 2. Young persons only want the latest. GTX 2 is improved, maximizes engine protection, because Castrol's the oil specialist.
That was a close one, Sol.
Improved Castrol GTX 2.
Oils ain't oils. Goils ain't goils.
Cars on the grid for round 1 of the Toledo Tool Sports Sedan Series here at Amaroo Park. And on the pole position is number 14, Keith Carling in an RX-7. Alongside him, Warwick Rooklyn, car 7, also an RX-7. Second row, Brian Thompson, car 17, a Mercedes. And alongside him in car number 9, Robin Doherty driving a BMW. Third row of the grid is car 155, Barry Jameson in an Escort. Alongside him in car 11, Rob Jolly from Victoria in a Commodore. Then Albert Cedars, car 33, as they spear away in this race. And by gee, car 14, Keith Carling, has absolutely blitzed them off the grid.
He certainly has got away very, very smoothly getting up the hill over the top of Skyline for the first time, and we await their arrival at Dunlop Loop. So Carling with Thompson dropping straight into second spot.
Bob Jolly's made a big start too, coming from 6th position on the grid, already up running 3rd.
Watch Thompson though, closes on Carling, coming down through the Coke sweeper. That Mazda boy keeps trying it down the outside. Here they come to Honda corner.
It's a long time since they put this many sports sedans down on a grid at Amaroo Park.
I love that sound.
There ain't no substitute for cubic inches.
That's right, my man.
Look at that. Thompson's got this twin-turbo Chevrolet powered Mercedes-Benz happening in a big way here in 2nd position.
He's on narrower tyres.
Oh, he's making a challenge up the hill.
There he goes. Look at that for brute horsepower. Then falls straight across to the inside. Carling drops into 2nd spot now behind Brian Thompson. The hot shoe from Shepparton exits that turn and works his way down the back straight.
Look at the muscle in this thing.
It's a twitchy machine around Amaroo Park. Carling will stay on his bumper all the way, try and pick it up in the closing stages of the race. 10 laps today for the sports sedans. Let's take a look at what happened. NEC replay. Oh, my goodness me. Turana has lost a wheel, has it?
Yep, that's Laurie Brereton. Oh, Laurie Burton, sorry.
I had one, but the wheel fell off. Right in both cases.
Cross the line, Thompson. Carling runs in 2nd spot as they head up the hill. Bob Jolly now into 3rd.
Bob Jolly should be looking for Electrolux sponsorship.
Oops, that is not the place to park.
Barry Jameson's Escort up over the Rebel Strip. Oh, dear me.
Right on line. The worst possible place to park.
He certainly got that. He must have dropped a wheel over and brought the car around. But I tell you what, it's going to cause everyone a few problems when they go chasing the line through that corner. Here's Carling closing again. Almost like the results of a demolition derby. There's a wheel down there, a car over there, and another one down there. Here's Carling now, starting to get onto the tail of Brian Thompson.
They're coming up on this car now at this home turn corner. Out wide they sweep.
Jolly also has made it up on the tail of Keith Carling, so I think we can expect a pretty close result for 3rd and 2nd. Thompson skips away again down into Dunlop Loop. Let's have a look at this and find out how Jamison did wind up there. Oh, there he goes. So too did number 9, Robin Doherty, but he was able to get out from under there. Jamison wasn't.
Yellow flags everywhere, Mike. It looks like the Banana Custard Fairy Festival up in Brisbane.
This is the category of racing that really grabs you, Uncle Doug.
Sports sedans. Well, you and I, Peter, are going to have a bit of a pedal in Crompton's RX-7 later in the year, I believe, so I have to take an interest.
Yes, that's the car that Crompton ran last year, actually owned by Ian O'Brien, better known as a swimmer, a gold medalist, I believe.
An Olympic swimmer, anyway, yeah.
Yes.
The Fish, as he's affectionately known.
The Fish. And you're going to get your CAMS licence.
This is my fervent hope.
After what he said today, there might be 3 signatures against it.
That's right, I might not even be allowed to come back to the track again, let alone commentate or participate.
There's Jolly going through. Carling still runs in second. Brian Thompson leads the race. Down towards Honda Corner again. They've opened up, gee whiz, probably 200 metres over the rest of the field. Jolly was close to Carling a couple of laps ago, but Carling closes occasionally on Thompson on the tight parts of the racetrack where Brian is kept reasonably busy, but as soon as he hits the straight here, he just opens up the taps, and away goes the Mercedes. There's the next bunch. They're probably back, as I say, 200 or 300 metres back behind them. We'll pick up the numbers for you.
They've changed the regs and cleaned these sports sedans up quite a bit, Mike.
They certainly did. I don't know whether or not it was for the better. The cars look a little tidy, I must say that.
Yes, you can almost recognise them now.
Yeah. But then again, you know, they weren't too bad. You know, everyone pointed a finger at sports sedans and said, you know, they're nothing. I tell you what, they do provide some entertaining motor racing, which is better than some of the other processional stuff.
Let me tell you, as a punter, I love them. Yep. I love the noise and I love the look. And you get some extraordinary hybrids out there going around. I mean, it's easy for somebody to support a car like Thompson's because there's 15 brands of componentry in it, you know. Everyone's got an option.
Well, the only people that really like the sound of turbo cars today, I think, are the various state pollution control commissions.
Mark Trinal's Jaguar was not down here for this event.
No. He was a pretty quick boy around here. Here's one also, 36.
Greg Crick, all the way from Tasmania. And that's very similar to the car that you'll be driving, Doug.
Yes, indeed.
Some Valvoline sponsorship, supporting the Say No to Drugs campaign.
Yes, they're doing a great job for that cause in the United States. Greg Crick has his hands full at the moment. Car number 69, Garry Wilmington. There's the gap, first back to second. Brian Thompson running away with the opening round of the Toledo Tools Sports Sedan Series for 88 at Amaroo. Keith Garling gets quick down here, tries to work to the outside, but it'll be tied up in this corner where Jamison's car still sits on the ripple strip.
Tomo's been around for a while, aged 53. First raced back in 1959 in Austin Healey. We forget that he actually raced abroad back in the 60s, raced in the British Touring Car Championship where he finished 6th in a Mustang. I'm a mine of information. And competed in the Spa 24-hour race, so nothing's new, Brocky.
I once raced abroad, but she won.
Here's Thompson coming down towards Coca-Cola Sweeper. As I've said on a couple of laps, this is where Carling closes right up. Thinks about just poking the nose down there. But look at the brute horsepower, though. Whoop, away goes Thompson down to the lake corner.
He has a super body Chevy, I think, coming up later on this season, so we look forward to that. Meanwhile, he's grappling with about 700 horsepower, a twin-turbo Chevy and a Mercedes body.
Across the strike, 2 laps to go. Brian Thompson leading from Keith Carling. Bob Jolly still runs in third.
You can actually see Thompson's car put the power on the ground and the smoke rise up as he gets second gear. Have you seen that? I mean, he actually breaks traction going through the gears out of the bottom here.
So I think you'd have to work up to that motor car. It's certainly a handful.
Derek Van Zelm. Whoa! He runs third. Whoa,
he bent it badly. Look at that.
Carling trying to work out how to get by. Just does. There's Tomo with one of the slower cars. Marshall's very quickly on the spot. That will put Carling up into the lead. Jolly into second and Van Zelm into third.
Yes, he was actually lapping that guy.
He certainly was. We'll have a look at this on the NEC replay. Oh, I tell you what, he caught it quickly, Thompson. Great reflexes, but the car's going to go back across the racetrack. Just catches the front of the Carling Mazda and from a different angle. 45 was the driver.
David
involved.
McGuinness in the RX-7 there.
Could write a book on it. Carling sneaks through. Every angle covered for you on our NEC replays here today at Amaroo Park Raceway. They're already on their last lap. Keith Carling coming down to Honda Corner. He'll shortly be heading off on the way to Lake Corner. Driving in the Toledo Tools entry, coming down to the Lake Corner now for the final time. Yellow Mazda RX-7. And here he comes. Last corner coming up. Keith Carling. Good things come to those who wait. He did, and he's picked up the checkered flag. Round one of the Toledo Tools series here today for Sports Sedans at Amaroo Park Raceway. Bob Jolly will pick up second spot, and third place, in fact, will go to the driver of car number 4, Derek Van Zelm. Recapping them for you. Keith Carling is your race winner. Bob Jolly second. Derek Van Zelm finishes third. Greg Crick is fourth, and Garry Wilkinson runs fifth.
To work hard for your money, Keith Carling. You certainly had to do that.
Yes, I certainly did. I don't think I've ever driven on a slipperier track than that one today. There was oil and garbage everywhere, and Brian's car was oozing fuel or something out the back, so of course that was making it hard for me to catch him, but unfortunately he had that bit of a tangle there with the Mazda, and that was it.
That was pretty exciting for you because it was all happening right in front of you for a while there. I didn't think you were going to get through.
For a while there, I didn't think I was going to get through either.
They've revamped the Sports Sedan regs for this season, but the back markers have still got some work to do, I think, to catch up to you guys.
Oh, yes, they have, Gary. We've changed our car fairly considerably from last year. We've put all new panels and what have you on it, but it's still basically the old car that we're running, and we're quite happy with the way it's been going, particularly here today.
Yeah, well, it was a fine effort. Jeff Coffey is here from Toledo Tools to make the presentation for a fine win today.
Keith, on behalf of Toledo Tools, it's our pleasure to give you this trophy.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Toledo Tools for sponsoring the series, and also, of course, giving our team sponsorship this year. It was very gratefully received, and I'd like to thank a lot of people back in Dubbo who have also given me a bit of assistance over the years, and hopefully they've seen this today, and it'll be all worthwhile for them.
Okay, well done. Keith Carling, winner of today's opening round of the Toledo Tools Sports Sedan Series here at Amaroo Park.
When it comes to sport, everything is not always as it seems. Take, for example, last year's James Hardy 1000 touring car race. The Bathurst to Paris extravaganza started on Sunday, October 4, and finished 160 days later in the shadow of the Eiffel Tower at FISA headquarters in Gay, Paris. Television viewers in 27 countries watched in awe as the black and red Texaco Ford Sierras of Soper and Ludwig posted a 1-2 victory. Well, that's what we all thought anyway. A protest entered by JPS BMW boss Frank Gardner and supported by a number of other teams against the bodywork legality of the Eggenberger cars was upheld by FISA. And blow me down if Peter Brock wasn't declared the winner. Rudy Eggenberger appealed the decision, but lost. So the pop idol reception Brocky received at Bathurst by loyal supporters was justified after all. Holden's Motor Company would love to promote their product won the Bathurst World Touring Car Round. But alas, prodigal Pete no longer drives for Holden. He's a BMW man now and is trying to sell last year's GM Memoirs.
Very carefully driven, of course, and in the wet, particularly I drove it very carefully in the wet, of course. And didn't miss too many gear shifts. Very nice on the transmission. Yep, price to sell and a bargain, I'm sure, at 70-odd grand.
A lot has happened since the green flag dropped at Mount Panorama and final dividends were declared in Paris this month. JPS BMW chief Frank Gardner announced he was quitting. His black BMWs have become Brock's Mobile 1 artillery, and Jim Richards is back with Peter Perfect. But for how long, you may well ask. Rumours persist Jim will join Frank Gardner and Tony Longhurst in the second Sierra before too long. Will Brock stay with BMW, I hear you ask? Reliable tipsters claim he too will be aboard a factory-backed Ford for '89. Back to those black and red Ford Sierras for a moment. You have to admit they were impressive. So much, in fact, Alan Moffat this week completed a deal for a brand new Eggenberger Ford. It will contest the European Championship opener today at Monza and will be in ANZ colours for the Wanneroo Touring Car Round on April 24.
It's no longer a case of fiddling with the carburetor or adjusting the distributor to try and get maximum performance, which is about the level of anything we've ever done for the last decade and a half. The turbocharged engines are programmed. They do have their onboard computer, and if you don't have that backup knowledge of how to run that computer, you're going to be in a lot of trouble.
Yes, folks, a lot has happened since the last Hardy at Bathurst. Who knows, maybe the great race itself might be in for a name change this year. Insiders say it's a certainty, with 4 major corporations ready to sign the moment contracts are prepared. As we said earlier, in motorsport, everything is not always as it seems, if you know what I mean. And welcome back to Sydney's Amaroo Park Raceway. We're preparing for the Stallion Stables 2WS production car stakes. We'll have a start to this race in probably a minute or so. Don't forget to stay tuned with 7 Sport. We have some great sport coming up for you. Next weekend, of course, the VFL Premiership starts, the match of the day on Saturday, starting, of course, at 1:55. That's Eastern time, following Sports World Saturday on the east coast of Australia. Replay in Melbourne, of course, later that evening. Then, of course, Davis Cup, Australia versus France, live from Clermont-Ferrand on April 8, 9 and 10. Make sure you catch us on the network 10:30 each evening. And, of course, the Shell Ultra Australian Touring Car Championship continues with round 4 at Winton Motor Raceway in Victoria, Sunday the 10th of April, 2 to 5 p.m. in Sydney and Brisbane, 5 to 6 replay elsewhere on the 7 Sport Network. And we have some 2WS Charmers on the starting grid. Let's take a look at the lineup today for the Stallion Stables 2WS event. Garry Walden fast qualifier yesterday with a 59.44. Second spot going to Brad Jones in the BF Goodrich Stallion, the 64.4. Car number 3, Peter Fitzgerald in the Yokohama Tyres Mazda from 4. Michael Preston, the Bridgestone Commodore, from 5. Of course, is John Burke in the Toyota Supra from position number 6. Is Roland Hill in the Commodore from 7. Jim Zarafos in the Commodore from 8. Tony Scott from 9. Tony Ryan, and out of 10, Chris Scott in the Commodore. And I think we're just about set to go. Peter Fitzgerald, Garry Walden in the Mazda. And the lights turn to green and away very quickly indeed. On the inside was Garry Walden. Fitzgerald goes with him very quickly indeed. Preston made a good start as well on the inside. So too did the Supra, up into about 6th spot at the moment on the inside as they head to the top of Skyline for the first time. Dropping down into Dunlop Loop, Garry Walden looking for 2 from 2 here today. Fitzgerald has caught 1 out and 1 back at this stage as they all sweep through Dunlop and head now onto the back part of the course.
That was a very good start from Garry Walden. He did a great job in the first heat earlier today. Peter Fitzgerald getting carved up at the moment by Michael Preston in the Commodore. So Preston gets through. Big field of cars in this popular form of motorsport at the moment. Great lead in the opening lap. Roland Hill is in 3rd position. Fitzgerald back to 4th, then followed by Brad Jones, John Burke, Jim Zarafos. So Walden comes up onto the straight now with the best lead we've seen at the end of the first lap for a long time. Zarafos makes a big run at Burke on the inside. The two of them go through that right-hander side by side. Brad Jones has made a reasonable start. This is a shot from race cam. Let's look at Zarafos as he squeezes through on the inside of Burke. Holden Turbo versus the Toyota Turbo. Blue flag being waved furiously. Look at these cars lurching on their radial tyres.
Bigger lurch there than the Adams family. Coming out of Dunlop Loop. Moving now onto the back straight. They have really closed it up. However, you'll find Garry Walden still able to outdistance himself from Preston down to Honda Corner. John Burke not doing a bad job in the Supra, staying in contact early in this race with the Commodores. Brad Jones is also up into about 5th spot, but there's Garry Walden. The Mazda has promised so much this season. I tell you what, he wouldn't get any closer. Almost took the blue off the Goodyear on the wall. There's Preston running through in 2nd. Interesting, the weave and the guardrail out of that corner, isn't it?
Yes, I can't understand why it's like that. That's Roland Hill in car 25. He qualified 4th for this race. The starting order for this race based on the finishing order of the first heat. This is Peter Fitzgerald. We're seeing him in the Mazda for the first time. He did practice the car at Calder in the final round of the Yokohama Super Series, but opted for his Turbo Commodore instead. And he's now got arch rival and the long-time enemy Brad Jones right behind him. This will be an interesting confrontation. Bradley's been working hard on this car, trying to get some performance out of it. Oh, and he's working really hard at the moment. Plunges down under brakes. Plenty of oversteer as he tries to figure out a way past Peter Fitzgerald. And he's picked up Valvoline as his major sponsor this year as well.
And in a day of gifted commentators here at Amaroo Park Raceway, as Miss Lizzie fans Doug Mulray in the corner, Peter Brock now joins us.
What do you make of all this, Brock? You had a run in these sorts of cars late last year at Winton and couldn't get the grin off your face. This is real motor racing.
Yeah, it is. It's real. Sorts out people's skill levels pretty well. You can see that quartering manoeuvre there back at the left-hander down through the back of the circuit there, where we had Bradley Jones there trying to get around, and you know, look, just watching this, he has to wait until Pete Fitzgerald uses a bit too much road. Peter's in a bit too tight there now. So he's going to try and move to the right here. It's not on, there's no move on at the moment, but it's zigging and zagging, just waiting for that that difference of speed in the line through the corner to just a lag. There we go. Now look, you see how defensively that Fitzgerald's driving. He's missed the apex.
Has he ever? And
there we go. He's really gone in too close, too tight. Bradley's got the line and he's out of the corner. That's just what it's like out there, folks, when you're driving. I can tell you, that's the sort of tactics you employ. That's what it feels like, and it's just fantastic what technology has done to race circuit coverage nowadays.
Well, you can literally live in the driver's seat. Jim Zerafos got some sort of a gain out of that manoeuvre. Peter Fitzgerald dropped back into the clutches of John Burke. And so Zerafos doing very well at the moment. It's only his second drive in this car. He went very well in the opening round of the Australian Production Car Championship, the Yokohama Australian Production Car Championship at Symonds Plains. And he's right behind Brad Jones at the moment. Peter McKay, Bradley's really working hard in this thing.
Yes, he'll have to battle to keep Jim back, because the Turbo Commodore obviously has a lot more straight line speed. And these two cars, these two drivers had a contretemps in the heat this morning, and words were spake afterwards.
Oh. Jim that time was fairly well wide of the mark, and Bradley had his hands full. Jimmy Zerafos is very familiar to us at Amaroo Park, 32 years of age, a tyre dealer by trade, raced an RX-7 in 84, did very well in the Laser Series in 85, fifth in the opening round of the production car title at Symonds Plains only a couple of weeks back, and knocked off the lap record in the process. It was a fine performance from him. Those details courtesy of Nissan. Brad Jones with about 2 or 3 car lengths in hand from Zerafos. He's got a fair amount of daylight in front of him. He's not really going to be able to make much impression on the leaders. Garry Walden's just having a great time in the Mazda.
Well, looking at Walden's fastest lap in the earlier heat, 59.64, and the next nearest time was, I think it was a 1 minute and 0.8 by Brad Jones. That's a long, long way when you're out here running in series production like that's over 1 second a lap. So,
the leader, Garry Walden. We should explain these cars are production cars, stock standard, minimal modifications allowed in terms of blueprinting. You can run buffed radial tyres, beef up the brake pads, stick in a roll cage and a fire extinguisher, a harness, and away you go. And the Mazda, if you can keep it cool, which it seems as though Gary's doing at the moment, is really the gun car. Scrap for second and third. Michael Preston's been doing a great job defending, trying to hold out Roland Hill, who's always been very quick around this track.
Yes, that Mazda, Neil, a couple of weeks ago, the leader changed engineers. He went from one to Barry Jones, who well known as a Mazda specialist, and he's very, very complimentary of the efforts that Barry's made with the car.
The trick with these, I guess, is to try and drive them as economically as you can and not wash off too much speed sideways, and try and keep them straight. There's not a lot of rubber on the road.
Well, you've got a minimum amount of grip, so when you haven't got much grip, you've got to use up that grip through a radius of a corner as evenly as possible, which means smoothness and balance, and you can't afford to stop and turn like you can, say, in a Group A racer where you're diving under them, like I noticed you before, Crompton, in the little BMW, you know. But you will not do this the next race, of course, but in this type of racing, you can't afford to overheat tyres. You've got to be accurate, got to be neat, and it's great training, I think, for drivers when they get in something that goes a lot faster.
This fellow in second at the moment, Michael Preston, is doing a fine job. There's Brad Jones in the BF Goodrich entry. Preston did very well in Gemini racing originally in Queensland, and sort of carved the name up there in one of the most competitive forms of motorsport that we ever see in this country.
I seem to have recognised that paint job on his car there somewhere before. I can't quite work out from where, but it's sort of a bit of a cord there or something online. Yeah.
There's nothing new in motorsport, Rocky.
You're dead right.
You talked about tyres earlier, Peter, and it's sobering to note that the tyres on these cars cost almost as much as your racing slicks. The better versions of these high-quality street radials cost around about $240 a piece. So you're looking at a grand a race.
Well, I think the saving grace for Group E is that the cars, by their nature, don't allow you to do very much to them. So let's say for $70 or $80 or $100,000 a year, you could run the National Series, I guess. And looking at that compared to a lot of other classes of racing, it's economical, and that's why there's such a full field here today, and I think everywhere we've gone so far.
We're seeing lots of different manufacturers involved, which is beaut, lots of different types of cars, and tomorrow there's an official launch in Sydney of the Peugeot dealer team for production cars, which is beaut, so we're seeing more brands and more interest from tyre companies and from the car manufacturers themselves, and it is an ideal proving ground.
Well, it's how Bathurst made its name back in the early 60s, and or late 60s, I suppose, it really came to the forefront, but it's series production, standard motor cars, all the manufacturers. It should be reflecting it. It should be a showplace of what is available to the public, and this is, you know, that's what it's really showing you today, as we've been mentioning.
Roland Hill, third position at the moment behind
I won
Preston.
the Round Australia trial on that car, I'm sure. No, did I? It looked like it. Oh, gee, it looked like it.
6 to go.
Garry Walden's got this one well and truly on his own. The cars have sorted themselves out in this longer event. In the earlier heat this morning, they're all over the top of one another. There's Walden, the leader, just tucks the front wheel up over the ripple strip.
His plan was to get out early and back off the revs just to keep the car under control, keep it cool for the remainder of 15 laps. The plan seems to be working.
It's the race cam carrying Jim Zarafos. Brad Jones seems to have narrowed the gap a little bit. He's in fourth, chasing, let me see who was it in third, Roland Hill. Let's have a look at the driver's eye view from race cam, courtesy of Jim Zarafos. We'll do a lap with him and see what it's all about. It's certainly hard work in these cars. I know one fellow who's done thousands of laps around here in a production car is Peter McKay. Just take us around.
Well, he's moving over, taking the line for the stop-go corner, back to second. Yeah, nicely, hit the apex, let her go out to the wall. Keep the car straight, don't work the tyres. To third through here and into the straight. Of course, he's flat all the way now up to the Nissan Skyline.
The car was nice and clean coming out of that very difficult corner up onto the straight.
At this point in the race, Jim would notice that the brakes going away a little, notice the tyres overheating a touch. It's very important to do everything early, not to leap onto the brakes at the last moment.
Did you notice?
Drifting her out there nicely.
Did you notice in the background there that Bradley was way out near the white line, having some funny problems with the car? Looks like it goes through phases of terminal understeer and then heaps of oversteer.
They haven't had a chance to do too much development work on the suspension of the Starion. They're concentrating on getting the engines to hang together. I guess that will come. Back to the leader, Garry Walden. Grows carnations and roses from the north coast.
Well, he's sticking some thorns into the opposition at the moment. He's fixing them right up. He's doing a great job. He teamed with Alan Moffat in the Peter Stuyvesant Mazda RX-7 a few years back for a stint at Sandown and Bathurst and did an admirable job.
Got his entry into motorsport winning an RX-7, the Triumph TR7.
That's right. It's a few years ago, a real Amaroo Park specialist, and does a great job.
He certainly has the scent of victory now, anyway.
Oh, good one, Brock.
Oh.
Yeah, Crompton was a bit slow on the uptake there.
We lose Mulray, we gain Brock.
I was wondering what Crompton was thinking about, what his race plans would be for the 2011 coming up later on. Get out in front and consolidate the lead, go back off.
Just close my eyes like I did the first time. Enough. No self-indulgence, please. Garry Walden leading.
And doing it so easily. I mean, for a Group E race, that is a very, very easy victory.
And a real turnabout. Earlier races this year demonstrated a Holden superiority, but it's good to see the Mazda up there. Gary's persevered with his motor car. Had some problems all through last year, but it looks that... Ooh, it was close. Looks like he's...
But I think it's fair to say that the name of the game is entertainment out there. We want to see cars battling to win a race and drivers really striving hard to gain that sort of either the technical advantage or the skill advantage to make sure that they get their product home first. And no one wants to see a one-make formula in anything except for a Formula V race, I guess. But I'm just natural. Well, I mean, here we are with Group E and Group A, and it's great to see a lot of manufacturers out there having a go. And one of the things we all want to see in Group A racing is, of course, other cars giving those series a real nudge along. And we won't be backing off, I can tell you, as the year goes by. We'll be giving it our best shot, because Johnson and Co are going very fast at the moment in that particular category, and it needs other people to get out there and have a go to keep the fans wrapped.
2 laps to go. This opening round of the Stallion Stable 2WS Production Car Series. Brad Jones in car 2, still working very hard.
Great talent, Bradley Jones. Good lad. Can drive a motor car.
He's a real operator, and he's just waiting for the right opportunity to further his career in touring car racing. Has even thought very seriously about Formula 3. Had an opportunity, albeit briefly, to run in Japan this year, but unfortunately the deal evaporated. He was looking at the possibility of touring car racing combined with Formula 3, which would have been exciting for a youngster.
And Walden, of course, it's easy to say that a driver is just cruising around, but when you're doing it well, that's how it looks. That's just the name of the game, and Walden's looking pretty good.
I noticed as Garry went down the back straight that time, he passed the stationary Starion belonging to Tony Scott, the Bridgestone entry, and it's smouldering away over there, so it must have had some sort of a problem. Bit of a disappointment for Tony, who qualified 10th for this race, as the last lap board now comes out. A little over 1.9 kilometres to run for Garry Walden in a very well-judged race. Michael Preston has withstood the pressure to date. He's got Roland Hill behind in 3rd place. It all looks fairly leisurely out there at the moment for Garry Walden, but he'd be working pretty hard, concentrating. He must be very pleased to get home once without torching an engine in this car, and certainly not detracting anything from Mazda as a fine road car, but it didn't adapt quickly to circuit racing. It was getting very hot, overheating, causing a few problems. But they've worked on the car, put a lot of time and effort. It's cost them a few engines along the way, I might mention. But with the support of Goodyear and all of his regular sponsors, he's been able to come through, and now he's getting the result that he deserves.
I think the most significant point you raised about Walden's racing effort is a change of engineers to get a motor car that is now running reliably when before it was falling apart. So
checkered flag now comes out, and Garry Walden takes the opening round of the production car series at Amaroo Park. A tremendous performance. 2nd placing will go to Michael Preston, and Roland Hill 3rd. So Commodore was 2nd. So that was a fine performance. Brad Jones in 4th, and Jim Zarafos rounds out the top 5. So that was a very good performance from Brad to recover a bit of lost ground there as well. Garry Walden the victor. Great job. Let's confirm those placings on the Castrol scoreboard. Garry Walden wins in the Mazda from Michael Preston and Roland Hill, both in Commodores. Mitsubishi was next with Brad Jones, and in the Goodyear Commodore it was Jim Zarafos in 5th.
When the heat's really on, Mobil 1 synthetic oil is at its best.
After 128 hours of high-temperature testing, Mobil 1 was in good shape. Ordinary oil found the going hard.
That's protection for you. That's Mobil 1.
Persistence pays off for Garry Walden in the Mazda RX-7 in round 1 of the Stallion Stables 2WS Production Car Series here at Amaroo Park today. Slip that round your neck and step on in. And I guess persistence is the right word. The Commodores seem to have the edge early on, and you had a few problems with this car, but they've been sorted out.
We sure have, Garry. Thanks to Barry Jones from Jones Speed and Mulray Hill Motorsport. I'd like to thank them both very much. And also I'd like to put a plug into, get well, Barry, because he's in St Vincent's Hospital at the moment having a kidney transplant. So all the best, Barry.
Yeah, it's quite an amazing sequence of events. He came out here prepared to drive Tony Mulvihill's car today in the touring car event, and has ended up getting a kidney transplant.
That's right.
A big effort on your own part, though, because the racing in this category certainly is getting very keen.
It sure is. It is now, but it looks like we've sorted our Mazda out now, and I don't think we'll have too many more problems.
Okay, presentation from Graham Rogers of 2WS on a fantastic effort.
Congratulations, Garry.
Thank you, Graham.
Well done.
Thank
Here's
you.
a cheque from 2WS and Stallion Stables and the plaque. All the best for the
Well, I'd like to thank 2WS and Stallion Stables for supporting this category again this year. Great.
Thank you.
First of many wins, I think, for Garry Walden here at Amaroo Park this season in the Stallion Stables 2WS series. It's going to be a great contest.